Yeah.
There we go.
Awesome.
What's going on, everybody? We got a special guest today, Tom Cahue. He is I know this probably isn't your normal type of interview. I know you're a business guy and IT and all that stuff, but today I want to do something a little fun and go into some UFO stuff and
Yeah,
paranormal. Whenever I get a
absolutely.
chance, I went through like your bio, and there's a lot of a lot of business stuff going on, IT stuff. So when I get a chance to talk to a smart guy, I usually take it. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on, and I'm sure there's fluff in there, so I appreciate you talking me up with that. But
we won't tell nobody that. It's fine.
no, believe it or not, the IT stuff started with a love for paranormal and all of the gadgets and stuff. Growing up, we were an X-Files household, so
Sure.
and
All of
EMF
us.
meters, you know what I mean, K2, all that kind of good stuff where you see it and it's like, oh man, this is cool. This is what that does. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah.
That sort of thing. So, yeah, I guess professionally, yeah, I'm a paranormal enthusiast and I moonlight as IT. Let's call it that way,
Right.
because I'm way more on the other side than
Nice.
staring at a screen and wiring things up and
Sure.
then listening to people complain about what's broken.
Oh yeah.
Do you do any kind of investigations, or you just?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. So I'm a part of the Free Spirit Paranormal Society located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the surrounding area. We're not just only in Philadelphia. Um, so Philadelphia, geographically is a tri-state area. So Jersey, Delaware, and then Pennsylvania. And we haven't gone into Maryland, but if you have anything, if anyone's listening from Northern Maryland has a haunted story, please, we won't turn that down. So that's what that's my group, my crew, if you will. We mainly stay on the positive or the lighter side of hauntings and things like that. We don't get into the demonic infestations or things like that. But we have, people we can call, like if you're having trouble, you know what I mean? And hey, we're not going to leave you hanging. We're going to pass your stuff along to people who actively can go ahead and investigate that. So, well, a lot of what we do is at Laurel Hill Cemetery. So we're not associated with the cemetery. We're just like the paranormal of choice, ghost hunting group, basically.
Right.
So what they do is they have like a come to a haunted ghost tour at our cemetery in Philadelphia. And once they get, I guess 40, 50 people, then they call us in. We break into groups and we it's a huge cemetery. So we'll take different areas and go check out different things.
I imagine you guys got a lot of people that haven't done it before and you're getting them into it.
Yes, exactly. So this is, that is your toe in the water, so to speak. You know what I mean? When you get into that, you're with a group of people that, if you were on a real investigation, there's, you wouldn't bring that many because there's too much crossover and sound, sure. All of that kind of stuff. But, what this is it's a 2-hour event, with light snacks and non-alcoholic drinks, and you can come see some cool graves because it's more of a celebrity type of cemetery. I don't mean like stars. I mean like there are people on the Titanic, or there's like movie character graves, things like that are nice stories. But there's also people from the Revolutionary War, and that was actually my only full body apparition sighting was a revolutionary person. Oh, wow. Yes, absolutely.
Do you guys ever record it and post it online as in YouTube or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Free Spirit Paranormal Society, if you Google it, fspi.org. We only keep our best evidence, and we believe in orbs and all that kind of stuff, but we don't post any of them because that's too
controversial.
Yeah, controversial is the best way to put it. It's there's a lot of different things it could be, dust, bugs, things like that. But if we don't post any of them and we don't count any of them, then we don't have to worry about that.
Right.
So unexplained mists, things like that. That's really where we draw the medium line at. But we've had one of like a head peeking around the corner. That one's cool on there too.
Bit creepy.
Very.
Yeah.
Very.
I could only imagine.
I did a tour with my daughter one time a few years back at a cemetery in St. Augustine, and we were just taking pictures randomly, and we got two. And the story is there's two children that hang out in the cemetery, and you can see them up in the trees playing around and just all over the place. And my daughter actually caught on her phone two child size, like green mist type thing. And she was the only
Oh.
one that caught it. So that's what kind of caught my interest. I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like nobody else caught it. I took the same picture she did. I didn't catch it, but it was pretty substantial. Like it was pretty obvious what you were looking at. So that was
Yep.
really that was pretty cool.
Absolutely. So that is a certified paranormal experience, and it's because she caught something on a camera when you were doing the same thing and
Right.
you
Yeah.
didn't have it, which, in the baseline definition, paranormal above normal, something not normal, that's what
Yeah.
that is.
Right.
And something similar to that, what we do is when we do our EVPs, we'll all be in the same room and we'll all hit start on our recorders at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And every place we go to, there will be disembodied voices on like 3 of the 5, and the other 2 do not have it. And we all have the same model,
Right.
voice recorder. So it's a little bit similar to, hey, we're all capturing the same ambient noise, but you have a voice, you don't, you do, and you don't. It's really
Do you
amazing
guys
to
do you
get
guys have
that.
all have the similar sound or similar what you can make out, or is it all different from each recorder?
No, it's the same sound. It'll
Is it? Okay,
be
okay.
an answer. It'll be sometimes a sigh or a breath or a moan. Not really like a shriek, but something like that will capture. And if it was one of us, then how come it's not on all of the other one type of
Yeah.
thing? So that's
Yeah.
That's the
that's where.
wild part, that you can actually pick up, you're 3 feet from someone and you'll pick up something completely different than
Yeah.
than I'll pick up.
Or nothing at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, one thing that we have to watch out for in the paranormal community is just jumping on everything, and that's paranormal, that's paranormal, that's
Right.
you know what I mean? We have to, science and credibility, because we have to be more skeptical than the skeptics.
Yeah.
We can't just throw our support behind everything, because that's, once we don't have a lot of credibility to begin with, because not
Right.
everybody believes this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we lose whatever trust we have, we're done.
Will you guys send it to random people when you get something like that to see if they hear the same thing or notice something different, or
Oh
is it
yeah.
just okay? Okay, I see.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
absolutely. Because, well, what we first do is we send it to each other, right?
Mhm.
So say I captured something at 8 minutes and 20 seconds, I will send it to everyone and I'll tell them to listen from 8:10 to 8:40, right?
Yeah.
And I won't tell them what time it is. I won't tell them that I heard anything. And I said, let me hear what you hear. And more often than not, I'm not going to say every time, but more often than not, they'll get the time and they'll get what they heard.
You'll
And
get
sometimes,
confirmation.
it's disembodied. So you might not
Yeah.
have exactly the word,
Yeah.
but it's very close. And the key part is they picked up the time. So one thing we never want to do is like lead people
Giveaways.
into what we're saying. And that's something that we talk about on the tours outside in the cemetery, is if you say something, just because somebody might be like, oh, I don't know if I saw that,
Yeah.
because this isn't a movie, this isn't a TV show.
Right.
What you might see something for half of a flash of a second, you know what I mean? And just let people know this isn't like a scene, you know what I mean, where it's going to be there for 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So you see something, go ahead and shout it out, because somebody else might have saw that, but they're like, you know what, I don't trust it, I'm not going to say anything
Right.
out
Yeah.
loud.
Yeah.
So there's comfortability in numbers.
So did this stem from something that maybe an experience you had at a younger age, or how'd you get interested in this kind of stuff?
Oh, so this was always an interest of mine, because it was an interest of the family. You know what I mean? Like I mentioned, we were a X-Files household growing up, right? So watching that stuff, Unsolved Mysteries too. You know what I mean? Watching those
Love
type
that
of
show.
things. Oh, I do too. I do too. I can't wait for the next season this fall to come back.
Yeah.
But some when it's not encouraged, but it's okay to talk about. As a kid, you're naturally going to become more and more interested in it. And I guess for me, it wasn't shut down.
Yeah.
And now this wasn't like a topic du jour, or I didn't grow up with Wiccan parents or anything like that. It was just, oh, that's interesting, that sort of thing. So as you get older, and as I got older, I didn't have too many like firsthand experiences in like adolescence and teenage. You know, my brother had, my mother had, um, so much for me. And then, you know, you get through like high school and college and you start working in your career and all of that kind of stuff. But as I got to like the mid to late 30s,
Mhm.
I had more time to get back into it, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
sure.
you know, that's where the podcast came from. That's where the meetup groups, the paranormal society, you know, there's just, you know, if you're too busy in your life, you have no time for anything. But
Right.
I entered a period where I did have a little bit of time, and I wanted to fill it with something that I used to like to do. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I wanted to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's just you know, trying to get back into hobbies and things like that. So that's where, you know, that's where having the society, and I'm only 2 years into that, you know, a year into the UFO meetup group, a year into the radio show and podcast, you know, so that sort of thing. So, you know, all of this stuff, and it's great because the community that I've met, you know, I can chat to somebody from the other side of the country. You know, I mean, look at this. Look at what we're doing now.
Right.
Yeah.
10 years ago, we didn't have this.
Sure.
You
At
know,
all. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Waiting for
yeah.
that email. That's what it is. On the UFO side, do you get a lot of experiences, or have you experienced anything, or just things you've been told? Um,
So I
witness.
have a firsthand experience with that growing up. So that story, I was 10 years old, 9 years old. I'm sorry, 9 years old, and family trip. My grandmother, my mother, and my brother driving down to Florida from Philadelphia. So I-95 the whole way.
Hmm.
Um, we get to South Carolina, and we notice that some people are pulled over. You know, people like on the side of 95, and it's a major interstate, 5 lane highway. Like, what are people
Right.
doing? You know,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
wild to pull over on something like that.
Oh yeah.
So, um, they look over, and this was on, you know, the right side of the car, the passenger side. They look over and they see, you know, we see this glowing like cigar shaped thing that's not too high off the ground, like 1,000 feet maybe. You know what I mean? If that. So my family pulls over. We get out of the car. Everybody's looking like, what is that? What is, you know? And people are on the side. You know, they're talking. What is that in the sky? It's just, and something I knew is I felt it right in here that I'm looking at something I can't explain. Now the
Yeah.
shape wasn't too crazy. You know what I mean? If you think of like a blimp but low to the ground but
Hmm.
completely illuminated,
Right.
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That's the best
That's what I
way
was
to.
envisioning when you said cigar shaped.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, perfect.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
So, next thing you know, state police, multiple cars are driving, you know, 10, 15 miles an hour alongside, telling everybody to get back in their car
Yeah.
and keep going. That's just a blimp. Nothing to see here. All this is in 1995.
Okay.
Never forget that story. So they're just, you know, get people back in the car. So they, you know, back then they have the, you know, laying out the speaker on the top of the
Right.
car,
Yeah.
and you know, us not being troublemakers, we get in and go, and before, you know, my grandmother, old woman, old Italian woman, she's like, that's not a blimp. And you know, it's one of the officers walking. And he's like, ma'am, I don't know what that is. And that's all that they needed. That story is told every, and you know how you get family. That story's
Yeah.
told
Yeah. Yeah.
every Thanksgiving, every Christmas.
Oh yeah.
Everybody tells that
Yeah.
story. But that was actually a firsthand one that I saw that I can like confirm. I have a feeling that that isn't normal. That's not here. That's not one of ours. So
Right.
after that, a lot of different lights in the skies that moving too fast, but nothing steady and slow. And you could take your time and look at it and
Right.
evaluate it from there.
Have you ever
Uh,
tried? Have you ever tried looking it up from 1995 on the internet to see if anyone ever saw the same thing?
I have. I have, and that speaks a little bit to me of not being able to let anything go. But you know,
Right.
that's a different subject in
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
I'm with
So
you.
yeah, I have tried to look that up, and you know, it's probably been about a year or two, maybe even more before since I've done that,
Yeah.
and you know, maybe it's time to look because the internet's always gaining new things, right?
Right. Yeah.
Every day, what's there today is not going to be what's there tomorrow. You're going to have more.
Oh yeah.
So I definitely want to do that, but that was pre like, you know, mass internet. Now I could
Yeah.
just hop on a sky scanner and see what commercial flights are in the area
Yeah.
and does it make sense or not.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Um, Yeah,
That's
and
smart.
95 you didn't have that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I noticed you have some involvement with MUFON. What's your involvement with them?
That's that's an interesting one.
Yeah. So MUFON, um, again, getting back into, these more fringe topics on society, I
Yeah.
wanted to join MUFON and I wanted to be where the action was essentially. So I started off as just a member and, getting the new, because I still like magazines. I'm an old school guy.
Sure, yeah.
I want to read a magazine, you know what I mean? All that kind of
Yeah, yeah.
stuff.
Yep.
So read a magazine, look at different people's stories that submit their stories to the, news or to the magazine and everything like that. And then from there, I I got a higher level of access where I can access the database of people's reports and people's claims. Now, I'll tell you this, I was not prepared for just the sheer volume of people that report.
Really?
If you were to ask me, I would have I did severely underestimate how many people are actually reporting UFOs. Um, I would have thought maybe they get 10 a month from all over the country.
Are we talking
And
about
it's more like
credible stories,
thousands.
or I'm sure some of them are kind of outrageous, but
so yeah, so scanning over a few, they probably do get 30 to 40 per state credible ones. And by
okay,
credible, I mean they allow you to upload a picture or a video.
okay,
Okay.
For me, and this isn't to shame anybody, but I won't claim a good one
Yeah.
if it's just a dot in the sky at night.
sure, yeah,
And it could be. I'm not saying it's not.
right,
I'm
yeah,
just saying for
Yeah.
me and what I'm thinking about, you know what I mean? Like I've seen some things at night that change color, that move in angles that our planes can't move in that,
sure,
let
Yeah.
alone military craft, let alone rockets, right?
Oh yeah.
A big thing now is spherical, completely like a round BB, completely
yeah,
rounded, anomalous vehicle, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
There is a theory that those are more of like sensors or drone, like alien drones. You know what I
right,
mean?
yeah,
Like
sure,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
atmospheric temperatures,
right, yeah,
readings. For because we don't know. You know what I mean? The hot debate right now, and if you get more of people like me, you can ask them this too: is do you believe in the extraterrestrial versus interdimensional theory?
right.
Okay.
I was
Whether
Yeah.
gonna, I
they're
was going to ask you about that. Yeah,
oh, okay. But yeah, so that's I'll get into that here in a second, but that's in MUFON I'd love tracking and seeing and looking at different UFOs, and of course you put in your own zip code. You want to see if there was anything you might have missed.
yeah.
Do you
But
get
when
any?
you get into
Do
I'm
you
sorry, go
ever
ahead.
get? Do you ever get anyone that mistakes the Tesla satellites for UFOs? Because I see it.
All the
At,
I see it
time,
all the time on
there it is.
Facebook, and yeah,
all
all the
the
time.
Man,
time.
it seems like every
Not
other week I see it on like our local area.
Yeah,
Someone
yeah,
posts that are those UFOs, and it's just like a straight line of them.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
I
Are
figured.
you on MUFON and in your local neighborhood, like Facebook
sure,
group or whatever,
yeah,
or your next
Yeah.
door group? People do that all the time.
Yeah.
You post it, and the thing is one person will do it in like a neighborhood group, and that's fine. They don't know. But in
Yeah.
MUFON, it's so funny because you will see people like along the zip codes of like where it's going.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It'll
You
pop
could
Oh
just
up
yeah.
follow them.
like
Yeah,
as
sure.
they go.
I was wondering if you'd do that. Yeah, because
Yeah,
I could
you
see
could
it
just map
happening.
'em.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I love doing that. I love like
I just
and
get
then
a
that's
good laugh
another
at night. That's what I want to do.
yeah.
Just get a good
Yeah.
laugh.
I mean, just
follow the.
refresh and you can
Yep.
probably guess what's coming next if you know like north, south, east, and west from
Yeah,
where
sure.
you are.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can just find you're like, all right, 19380 is gonna pop up here in 10 minutes, like wherever just
Yep.
locally near me.
It's
But
hilarious.
I that does lend to the credibility though on the other side of when there is a craft in the air that's not Starlink.
Yeah.
And somebody says, "Hey, there's an orange orb," and I take a look, I look at the zip code, and then from that day, maybe within minutes, hour, or so, a neighboring city, a neighboring county, there'll be a
Yeah.
report there too. I'm like, okay, now it's not just one person,
Right.
and now it's not just somebody in the same household writing two different reports. These are,
Yeah, if you can
these are
corroborate
popping
it
up in
through,
an
sure.
area.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, like where there's smoke, there's fire type of you know,
Oh yeah, definitely.
reasoning.
So does MUFON have I guess I'll put it like this: an official stance on what do they believe that they're come from the water? Do they believe that they're from outer space? Do they believe they're from another dimension? Do they have an official stance on where they believe they may come from?
Have an official stance because they're trying to posit themselves as we are just the network that holds everything from you. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
they're not going when you if you were to go and you saw something tonight, right? You go and you see something up in the sky and you want to submit a report to MUFON, you'll be able to submit your report. You'll be able to drill down as granular as what the shape was, your coordinates. You know what I mean? If you wanted to get into that, and just the description, and then an area for media if you have a little video or if you have a picture, and then that's what comes in to people on our side, and then they'll send out an investigator based on like your obviously geographical area to go out and interview you for a case file if it if they so deem, and then you can read the case files as anybody. You don't have to be, you know what I mean? You can read the case files by yourself. But they have it's basically just a bunch of nodes, and everybody, like every state has a director, and they talked with each other, and they hold a symposium, which is like their Super Bowl in August every year.
Yeah.
And so, I think for the fact of they don't want to push any ideology out of there.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
They stay out of that and just leave that for us to go ahead and
they just report the facts.
Because, and yeah, that type of stuff. Right. But there's arguments for both sides. I'm not going to sit here and say it's only the extraterrestrial theory and nothing else, or it's only the interplanetary theory or nothing else. And then a growing one lately has been spiritual, that some people believe these are angelic or demonic. And and then they get into Vatican stuff.
That's been popping up in the news lately.
The Vatican has, the Vatican has, because they, for the first time in a while, I think there might be a little changing of the guard, if that makes sense there. Not as many old guard, you know what I mean, type of stuff now. Here's one example. A few years ago in 2008, the chief astronomer, and this is fact, you can please fact check it all you want, the chief astronomer of the Vatican came out and said, just if there are aliens, that does not ruin the Bible. You know what I mean? That does not mean the Bible is not true.
Well, that was a big concern for a long time.
Absolutely.
What do the heavy religious people believe if there's extraterrestrial somewhere? Does that defeat the idea of God, or does it conflict with it? So I mean, I get it, but I think you can have both if you're into it.
Absolutely. And then also, if with any major religion, you're going to, just like politics here, you're going to have different segments underneath the Catholic Church who we need to go by the Bible and nothing else, or I'm going to take stories from the Bible and apply concepts to my life. You know what I mean? Right, and then everywhere in between, you have those people. So for somebody in very high position, very, very high position in the Vatican to say that, and he said it so eloquently, this man from Argentina, he said, we believe there is a creator, God, right? We believe there is a creator. If aliens exist, that means he would have to have created them.
Correct, sure.
And I would look upon them as my brother. And that's all he said. And it kind of got pushed down a little bit. It did, because at that time, but it started to pop up again over the last 2 years. That people were like, man, they were announcing these things right in front of our face. But for whatever reason, 15 years ago, people didn't really want to listen to that at that time.
Sure.
Again, it's a completely different time. You had the disclosure hearings it's almost a year ago, 11 months ago. And the whistleblower testimony that happened after that.
Yeah.
Plus,
it's getting more and more popular, and everyone's getting aware of it, I think, now.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. It's if you do a simple Google search of UFO news, you'll see all major media outlets, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, have a segment of UFO news under them now.
Yeah, they're getting more and more
had that
prevalent for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, with the disclosure hearings, because I have a little theory about why that happened and why, you know, we love making you look, hey, look over here, but the facts actually here. You know what I mean? We love doing that as a country.
Yep.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
I truly believe that this is orchestrated by the defense contractors, because there is a lot of tech out there that they don't know what to do with.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do with because the most brilliant minds in the 70s, 80s, 90s, when they were working on this, like Boeing, they're old, they're dying, retiring, and you don't have that new blood to come in because you
Right.
can't talk about it.
Right.
This
Yeah.
younger generation behind me, they don't do disclosure. They want to get on their phones and tell you everything about their whole
Yeah,
life.
Absolutely.
That's so true.
If we can get disclosure past that, then you have people from Boeing, Lockheed, BlackRock, and they're like, hey, MIT, why don't we start working with this tech and we'll give you guys a job after you get out? You know what I mean? And you can talk about whatever you want. So again, conspiracy theory, I think that might be in play here. And that's why the government is now more involved than they have been in many, many years.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That was one thing I wanted to bring up was the government hearings. And, you know, I believe that it's a mixture of both. I think that we have a lot of tech that we've developed based on crafts maybe that we have found in the past, and, you know, why they were here, I don't know. You know, I know a lot of the UFO stuff kind of started in like the late 40s when we started doing nuclear testing and stuff like that.
Yes.
Like, are they just
Oh,
watching us to make sure we don't blow ourselves up, you know, or like that's a big concern. I mean, I don't know, maybe they're grooming us for something, you know, who knows? But I think there's a lot of tech that we have that came from somewhere else that maybe we didn't put together. And we probably have a lot more that we don't know about. And we're still trying to figure out, like the anti-gravity stuff. And, you know, there's a lot of people that, you know, like Bob Lazar, you know, he talks about the possibility of us having the anti-gravity, answer to anti-gravity and stuff like that. Like, that's all that's stuff that's super interesting to me, you know, because that's the way I think that's what we have. I think that's where we're at. We have a lot of tech that, a lot of the things that people see in the sky is our stuff. And that, you know, that's what I believe.
I completely agree. We're never going to be 100% one way or the other. The answer is always somewhere in the middle, right?
Right. Sure.
And if you just listen to Bob Lazar and Dr. Stephen Greer as a beginner, for anybody out there who just, hey, this is interesting, listen to them for an hour, and you'll be up to speed on a lot of. They are very smart men. They are very, very smart men.
Yeah.
And the thing is I agree. You're right. You know, short of making an ass of myself, I could stand up here and say fiber optics are not from this world. That's something that was given to us to help speed up AI, which would then help us evolve quicker and get smarter that way. So that's something I personally believe. I'm not afraid to admit that one. But I'm going to put this thought too. Let's not give them renewable energy, clean energy that's always going to last, or anti-gravity, or, you know, anti-gravity to travel to space and time. They're still bombing each other. Let's give them a fiber optic thing and see if they can figure that out. Right?
Sure.
That's what I think.
I mean, we might be ants to them. You know what I mean? Like, that's.
Yeah, we don't have the best track record of finding something new without weaponizing it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I've looked at a lot of different stories, and people talk about, you know, if they talk, there was the incident that happened in, I believe it was Zimbabwe, with the school children that found,
fascinating story.
One of the weirdest ones.
And they talk about, you know, why they may have introduced themselves to children, because children are not dangerous. You know, they're not a threat.
No threat.
They can enter, you know. Because if it landed in my driveway, my neighbor would be outside with a shotgun taking shots. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, no, a lot of people
like
would.
I get it, you know.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. A lot of people would, and you know what? What's even crazy now? Let's say a UFO from another planet landed on the White House lawn and got out. You would have people still not believe it, think
100%.
it was staged,
100%.
think Biden or Trump set it up, whatever it was. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You would still have that. So until they come right to you and slap you in the face, basically, you're not going to get 100% of humans to believe in that.
Yeah.
So going back a little bit to the interdimensional versus extraplanetary theory, I am on the interdimensional one. Now, listen to both. I talk with both. I understand there's flaws with both sides and there's strengths with both sides. But one thing that stuck out to me and why I believe it is when you have a bunch of annoying. Let me put it this way: when you have a bunch of annoying like dogs and you're the old house cat, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have puppies running around, all that. Where do you go? You go to a place where the dog can't get.
Yeah.
What do we have a lot of trouble with as humans? Water. It's
Yep.
dark. We can't swim. We
Yep.
have nothing that can survive that pressure.
Oh yeah.
And if we were to nuke everything on the surface, what you have in the water, if you had a base down there,
Yeah.
you're not going to worry about that. What do I care?
Yeah,
Let that
you're
we'll
relatively
just come
safe
up again and
sure.
Oh yeah.
all of that. Many believe, there's so many underwater volcanoes too. Mount Shasta, I'm going to use for example, has some of the highest natural EMF readings, and there's no electricity there. They're natural portals, is what some people have said. So
Okay.
under there, if you're using portals to go between dimensions, you know what I mean? It's safe to say, hey, if we figure out how to live under the water and can go to ours, and then when we come over here, we're not landing in Baghdad. Basically, we're
Right.
landing, you know what I
Sure.
mean, somewhere
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
We can be there and then go ahead and figure out wherever I need to go, what do I have to do. And also, they have a love of military test sites, military nuclear test sites to be
Yep.
specific. They have shut down, and these are reports, so not verified by me, but these have been reports that they've shut down weapons on aircraft carriers and even nuclear weapons. So when you
Wow.
have that, we have to be sharing something with them for them not letting us use it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Right.
Why would they care if they're from, hypothetically, let's say they're from Neptune, right? Hypothetically, why do they
Yeah.
care if we blow this up? They don't have anything that we need. Everything they have is on theirs, or they can manufacture it any way they
Right.
want.
Right.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
so I believe personally there's some shared space, which means, if there's overlapping dimensions on top
Sure.
of it,
Yep.
we don't know what nuclear devastation can do to another dimension because we only have ours. So that's my
okay.
spiel for why I believe
Well,
that one.
when I talk about paranormal stuff, I think about that. Like, people see ghosts or shadows or whatever in a house.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've thought about this before about maybe if you believe in a parallel universe type deal, maybe there's
Yes.
a spot in the universe where they get so close together we bleed through.
Yeah.
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like the old man you see walking through your kitchen is in his own universe, but he's just so close to yours. Maybe you get a glimpse of him as he's walking through the wall, or you know what I mean. And I've always thought about that when we talk about paranormal stuff, because
We always get on
believe
that subject.
yeah, I think if you believe in parallel universes and multiverse theory, if
Mhm.
you will, which have been more and more evidence that maybe that's plausible. That's definitely
Yeah.
plausible, but whether or not there's been more and more study and talk about it. Maybe that's a paranormal explanation also. That
Uh,
people coming from inner dimensions and just
I've always wondered, like,
intermingling.
if we see them as ghosts, do they see us as ghosts? As in
Right.
the medians that do talk to them, are they the ones that are the ghosts on the other side? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Weird to think about.
mm, very good
Like,
to think about. And very interesting because I also, Ian, I agree that with, that thinning of the veil is the best way I've heard. You know what I mean?
right.
Like if
Yeah.
you
Sure.
look through a lacy veil of like a
Uh-huh.
curtain, you can kind of see through it. Um, I believe that in the realm of cryptids, that maybe Bigfoot
Yeah.
isn't here, but people
Yeah.
are seeing a thin veil of him in somewhere else.
Yeah, for
And the
sure.
same thing with spirits and entities, because if they're living in their time, what is your house could have been something way,
Yeah.
we don't know, it could have been something 800 years ago, different, and that's where they are, and
And
I absolutely believe
you
that.
get these hot spots, and that's just happens to be where the two universes get so close together that they can bleed through. Maybe the old guy that you saw walking through your kitchen sees you walking through his bathroom. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
exactly.
don't know. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And like, it's just fun to think about. And I've always thought about that. Like, it makes a lot of sense if you really look into the multiverse thing more and more. Like, maybe that's the way it works. Maybe there's just the thinning of the veil in so many spots that
I could totally see
Absolutely.
it.
And some believe CERN has
Oh yeah.
found that, has found, a certain number of dimensions past ours
Yeah.
through their Hadron Collider.
I think they believe they're
Um,
up to there could be up to 13 different
yeah.
multiverses right now.
And of course, with
Insane.
science, it might be 13 today. You don't know what it
Sure.
could be in 100
Yeah.
years from now. You know what I mean?
Oh
And
yeah.
there could be an infinite number of them. Some,
Yeah, a lot of people say that.
yeah. I've on my show, I've had numerous psychic mediums
Mhm.
who have talked about this, the death, the spirit world, all of that kind of stuff. And you know, one, there's an air of believability with the ones that I've talked to, just because you get to know them a little bit,
Sure.
and well, they know what they're talking about. But the ones that say, well, when you die, you're going to know what I know anyway, so you
Right.
don't have to believe me in this realm. This, when somebody puts it like that, you're like, oh, okay, fair enough. But if we see being three-dimensional, and this blew my mind when this one psychic medium talked to me, was they even had heaven on the dimensional plane, where the
Okay.
fifth
Yeah.
dimension is the lowest level of heaven. Your soul needs to learn lessons to graduate to higher levels. You
Okay.
know what I mean?
Right,
And
right.
unlock different blisses, or whatever that was. And so when they come down to here, we see it as a spirit. You know what I mean? We see,
Mhm.
the mists, the EMF readings, even if you can't visually see it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Animals can see them, certain animals can see them, but they can see us perfectly because a higher dimension
Can
can
see.
go down, but a
Sure.
lower one has trouble going, that type of thing.
I understand that.
And so, they say, well, if you look at a piece of paper or a drawing on a piece of paper, you know what I mean? We can understand 1D from 2D.
Sure.
Yeah.
But we can't. And if you believe time is the fourth dimension, we can't see time where others would be able to.
Right.
So not only are they going to see Tom, Ian, and Tyler right now, they would be able to see what you were in a previous life, what your soul carries, what you know what I mean? What's
Right.
been imprinted on your soul.
Yeah.
If you were to believe that model that our souls just jump to a different body, you know what I mean? It's not so much reincarnation, but our soul has to learn a different lesson. So at this go
They're
around,
not done
I'm
yet.
Tom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
They're not done yet.
Yeah. We had a medium
And
on a couple weeks ago, and that's exactly the way he described it.
Exactly how he just
Yeah. Like
described it too. Yeah.
you're not done with your whatever it is that you're meant to do.
The
So
lessons
Yes.
you're learning, or
yeah, whatever you got to learn, you haven't learned yet. And that's exactly the way he
yes,
described it was that way.
and that's what's also interesting to me is I talked to numerous of them, and they all say the same thing. It's
Right, yeah.
weird. I'm like, where are they go? Where's this university that they're
Maybe they got a
going to? Where are they all
handbook that
coming
they-
out with the same jargon that they have to learn and memorize this? When I was in school, we had to memorize the
mean-
Gettysburg Address. They have to
Right.
do this.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, it was T for T. I mean, it was dead on with what he said, with what you said. It was.
But some of the stuff he said made a lot of sense as far
it
as,
did.
you know,
It did.
but then some of
Yeah.
the stuff you're like, I don't know that if I can get with that, but you
Yep.
got to pick and choose, I guess.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because what he sees is in him.
right.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Sure.
And if it makes sense to you, who's to say your soul at some point wasn't one of them
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the past?
Yeah. Who knows?
And
Yeah.
who knows if the past is only behind? I mean, they might be able to see what your future self and your past self is. I'm not a expert on that by any means, but time, we don't understand it. And if you believe that's the fourth dimension, a lot of people do. We can interact with it, but we can't manipulate it. But 5, 6, 7, 8, they can do that.
Right.
Yeah.
You can go down, but you can't go up until you're
Yeah.
ready. That type of situation. Sure.
Yeah, and it's like a piece of paper can't fold itself.
Right.
But us being 3, we can manipulate it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
makes a lot of sense. You mentioned Bigfoot. I've heard that theory a lot, that he's like that they're like an interdimensional being,
mhm.
which is kind of, people talk about like, oh, you never seen a body, you never found a dead one, you've never seen,
Mhm.
which would lend credence to that, like maybe because he's gone, he went back to wherever he came from, and that's why you don't see him, that's why you don't find the bodies, so I mean could be some possibility to that.
I again, another drop in the bucket for interdimensional theory is that would definitely explain why people have seen different Bigfoots. No, they've just seen him in different, realms.
Right.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Or with different veil thinnings. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? They're not all going to look the same. How come we haven't found families or baby Bigfoots
Right.
or
Yeah.
bodies or scat or whatever, fur, hair? Well, it's because you caught him for that moment.
Brief
Have you
second,
ever heard
yeah.
anybody's Bigfoot story that was like over 3 minutes?
No, never.
No,
No,
they're
no.
walking in the
They're
woods and they
always
see
very, yeah.
something or they smell it or they,
Mhm.
whatever. Some might say like, okay, I was chased by Bigfoot or not, and they very well could have been. But I'm going to probably, I'll go on a limb and say 95% of them, it was I saw him and then it was gone.
And they was yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Disappeared in the woods or
That
wherever.
veil, that veil is not open very long.
Right.
So that veil would have to be extremely lucky to catch a dying Bigfoot on the way down for it to live, or for it to,
And again, you have those hot spots where you have a bunch of sightings in a small area, mile radius, couple mile radius, whatever, and maybe that's the spot where it's thin and he can get through, or you can see him. So that's always interesting to think about, and that's
very hot. Was it Pacific Northwest?
Yeah.
I mean, when I think of Bigfoot, I think Northern Oregon and Washington,
yeah,
right?
Washington for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Now you have different types. You have the skunk ape, swamp
Right.
ape. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We got that down here.
Yep.
Yeah. So who's to say that veil isn't opening wider and wider? Maybe we're
Sure.
causing it to open wider and wider.
Yeah.
If you remember back in the day, it was only those states.
Yeah.
And now there seems to be everywhere, everywhere. I mean, I live in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a big stereotype. We have 2 cities on the end, and then nothing in between.
And the rest
Yeah, you have mountains and Penn State. That's it. That's literally it. You have a place to fuel up from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia, and that's all you have.
Right, yeah.
So to say that now there's some over here, and I'm like, man, it can't be the same thing. It can't be indigenous. It can't be in this world.
Yeah.
Right.
What do animals have? They have a habitat. What happens when you take an animal out of its habitat? It doesn't do so well, correct?
Yeah.
It might die off.
Yeah.
And if you're telling me that these things have been around for enough generations to, evolve into living in that, where's the migration? Why haven't people seen it coming from the west to the east?
Yeah.
You can't
so
follow
many
it.
questions.
Yeah, there's no trail you can follow.
No.
Of sightings.
Now you can go the underground way, but then if they could live underground and travel all the way underground, why the hell do they want to come up here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To be shot at in the woods.
Exactly.
I'm a big fan of Skinwalker Ranch and what they do out there.
Oh, I love Skinwalker
and there's
Ranch.
a lot of their research shows that there's a very good possibility that there's portals out there, and the Skinwalkers, the Native Americans have been talking about this for God knows how long. You know, you see a Skinwalker over the hill, you go up there and it's gone. Maybe that's one of those spots where I want to go all the sightings.
I want to go there so bad and just tent out on the road.
I mean, that's on my bucket list.
Yeah. If you guys are doing it, let me know. I'll throw in for that. But that would be amazing to go out there. You guys know what FOIA is, right?
Yeah.
Freedom of Information Act. Okay,
yeah.
so I FOIA'd a couple documents because that's how I spend my free time.
Right.
I just want to let everyone know. I FOIA'd a few documents, and on Beyond the Radar, I read on air to about 100 and some thousand people down in Louisiana and Mississippi, Project Kona Blue, because I got the documents back, heavily redacted.
Sure.
But one of the parts in there was the government authorized paranormal site testing at a ranch in Utah owned by, and it had Robert Bigelow's initials on there.
Oh my
and I was like, well, I know what that is.
Yep.
And they came to some scientific conclusions of anomalies. So scientifically proved it didn't go into like, okay, I saw a skinwalker. You know what I mean? It didn't do any of that, but it scientifically proved anomalies of the magnetic fields, EMF fields, and the basin, the greater basin where the ranch is. Acknowledged.
I think it's like the Uintah Basin, or
exactly.
Yeah.
And this is all acknowledged in a CIA document that had to be FOIA'd. That there's enough smoke that they paid money to go out to this man's ranch and then in the greater basin and perform paranormal test studies on it.
Yeah,
And
when Bigelow owned
I
it, they did
love
a
that.
lot of government stuff out there. They, he's a government contractor now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His company, but and when Brandon Fugel bought it, they kind of like didn't give him anything. They're kind of like, yeah, no,
Mm-mm.
this is all coming with us. You figure out your own stuff.
Oh
So
yeah, I
that was
mean,
pretty interesting.
Bigelow's bidding up there with Boeing and
Oh,
with
absolutely.
Lockheed
Sure.
for the technology. He is, and that's something that scares the government is a private citizen with that kind of bankroll. Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
Oh, well, they talk about the black helicopters whenever they do tests and stuff. There's always black
Oh
helicopters
yeah,
around, like trying to spy on them, and people trying to get on the ranch. Which, I mean, I would probably try to go on the ranch, but
Yeah.
yeah,
that place.
yeah.
They're just outside of the gate. I guess there is a road between like two, I guess, ranches, and people
Mhm.
actually go out there and they camp, and they just camp. It's legal. They got a campsite out there, and you can just go out and camp for the weekend or whatever, and just sky watch. And
And
people
I
say
imagine you'd see something.
they see things every single day. They say every single day there's some sort of unexplained aerial phenomena or whatever you want to call it. And there's reports every single day of it. There's videos and all kinds of stuff of these people doing it. And they just drive up and camp out. I'm like,
Yeah.
that would be super cool.
I wonder what the future holds for that, because you can talk about that stuff in the 90s and 2000s, but
Sure.
look, everybody today has a little computer in their pocket,
Yep.
right? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
With TikTok, with Instagram, with Facebook, all of the social apps that you'd be able to just, I mean, you could put this in a tripod and aim it at the sky and do a live. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
yeah.
And you're going to see
Easily.
stuff. I don't know if the government is quick enough yet to get in front of that, and that's
Right.
why these are here now.
Right.
But they would have to
You
use like
know,
an AI to prevent any of us like bringing any kind of video out there. Might just have something that will just block us right away. In my opinion, I think that's where it would go. They just couldn't
funny
keep up
you
with it.
should say that. Being in IT, there is some theory, and some companies have tested it and successfully, that there is a certain net, and it's funny because the internet, but there's a certain net that
Okay.
if you hit that something, it won't post. There's people who have complained, and more specifically in Miami with their alien mall thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
that nobody could get service to upload their TikToks and things like that
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
that. And
And it's like the only videos they're allowing are the ones that you don't want to see. It's like, come on,
yes,
like
Yeah.
what's going on with this? Everyone thinks it's a joke then. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
We have had independent confirmation, because you know how there's that joke that, oh, my camera can see all of this, but you have bank cameras and UFO cameras that you
Yeah.
can't see anything, and all of
Yeah.
that, and it looks fake. And for take him for what he's worth. I'm not saying anything, but when Tucker Carlson was on Joe Rogan's podcast,
Yeah.
he
Listen to that.
went ahead and mentioned that the videos that they see, are
Mhm.
clear,
Yeah.
are very high def, and what they show out to us is that pixelated image, especially with gimbal go fast.
Mhm.
Everyone mocks
And
it at that point then when it's so diluted the
yeah,
video.
oh, you can't even see what that is. Well, that's
Yeah.
on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I can
because I
see
mean, with
that.
cameras today, the cameras only get better and better. So the government's going to, I mean, if that's the case, the government's going to have to get better and better at
Yeah.
doing their thing too, because the cameras today are just ridiculous. Like I got an S22 and I could take a picture of whatever the hell I want and blow it up to all kinds of specs, and it's amazing.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah. It's amazing what we can do in that. And you're telling me a naval carrier is going to give me a black and white ball doing circles in the
well, that's
sky? Like,
Yeah.
when they talk about the congressional hearings, which you talked about a little bit earlier, and the guys that I listened, like David Fravor, like those guys, they're highly respected. They're smart guys. Like
yes,
they don't have anything to gain other than being ridiculed, probably, really, at this point.
Yep.
So they're coming forward, they're telling their stories, and you see these videos of super grainy, like Tic Tac, and I'm like, they gotta have better video than that, and they're just not showing us. You know what I mean? But the things that they talk about, things being at 60,000 feet and dropping to nothing in
Yeah.
a half a second.
Yeah.
That's not something that can happen that we know of. But these are guys they're legit guys, man. They're not some private that was sweeping the floor. These are guys that are, they're big
Yeah.
High
deals.
ranks. Yep.
Yeah.
No, you're exactly right. There's been a lot of those, privates sweeping the floor that have gotten their careers ruined because
Sure.
they mentioned,
Yeah.
oh, I saw a disc come into Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and now this guy,
Yeah.
he can't get a job anywhere. You know what I mean? So, these people are highly respected, and I think they owe a little service to those people who got silenced, got
Sure,
shut
yeah,
up professionally.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But one of the things from that congressional hearing that I'll always remember is when Fravor, yeah, it was Fravor. He said, what I saw, or somebody asked him from the panel, do you believe we could have shot down this craft?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he said, there's nothing in 2004
yeah.
that we could do to have shot it down. And there's nothing
Yeah.
today that we can do to shoot it down.
They couldn't chase it.
now
They couldn't
this-
shoot it
Remember that.
down. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, you guys remember that part?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I
Oh, yeah.
watched,
Oh, yeah.
I watched every word. I was enthralled
Yeah.
by that, man.
Yep.
I
That's
watched
amazing.
all,
I
don't know,
love
8
being on
hours
here.
of it. It's just,
It can
it's
make
amazing.
a lot of people
stuff.
nervous. Yeah, it can make a lot of people nervous too, the way he does say it. I mean, there's nothing you can do. Nothing they can do.
No, and you're exactly right, Tyler. It was the way he said it
Right.
Yeah.
that you could see his seriousness in the way he said it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And how he truly believes, as a commander
Right.
in our military.
Oh, yeah.
I know what we have, and we can't do anything
And we can't
against
do
that.
nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
At least it
And-
makes everyone think like, oh shit, like if something actually did happen, I mean, they can't do anything. We're defenseless against it.
Yeah. Yeah. What do we spend the most money on budget after budget every year?
So,
You
know, military.
defense, military.
Always. Yep.
Military.
Yeah.
And you're in the people that vote on that, the
Yeah.
people that decide how much money gets spent on that. And you tell them there ain't a damn thing we can do about it.
Well, one of the parts of that they were talking about, what I found interesting was now they include UFO reports and sightings, I guess, in daily briefings and some of the, I guess, carriers or whatever. But they actually include them in the daily briefings where they talk about what they saw maybe the day before or whatever. So I think as time goes on, they're letting a little more and more out. I don't know why they're doing it. And I don't know
I think
if what they're letting out is actually what's happening, or if it's just kind of like, here's a little bit, be happy. We shared a little bit.
I think
go
it's
away.
more or less just numbing the public slowly. So it's just a natural
Yeah.
thing. When someone sees it, they're like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, I saw that
Yeah.
like 2 weeks ago, like of a different sighting. You know what I mean? So no one's really freaking out. Because beforehand, like in the 90s and the 2000s early, people would freak out. Now it's like a normal thing. It's
I
like
mean, you couldn't even talk about UFOs in the
Yeah.
60s or 70s. Like,
you'd be crazy.
yeah, they'd lock you up. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
you saw something, you'd be in an insane asylum. You
Yeah.
certainly wouldn't be in the military talking about shit. Like you wouldn't be saying that. You wouldn't know nothing.
We wouldn't see that person again.
There's all kinds of
No
stories
one-
that we've talked about on different podcasts about 60s and 70s, different stories that they've told, and they were like, I couldn't say nothing. Who am I going to tell? I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
go back and tell my commanding officer, hey, I just saw this, whatever. You couldn't do that.
Yeah. And that's off the heels too. A few years before that, of Orson Welles scaring the whole damn country.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
right. Yeah.
He had a lot of people freaked out that one, but it's funny. Yeah. But they'll tell you 50 years later when it's declassified. And
Right.
that's the thing that really upsets me. I had somebody on UFOs over PA, and he was in the Army, but he was a firefighter, and he was down in Guam from 68 to 70. And he was down there when Project Blue Book ended.
Okay.
And this man was talking to, our meetup group, so like 10 individuals on a Zoom, just like this, his
Yeah.
story, you know what I mean? And he was the father of a coworker of mine. And by the end of it, this guy was red and teared up a bit because he said he was never able to tell what he saw
Yeah.
because he said it was really hard for him because he kept getting shut up. Don't talk about that. Don't talk about that. And he's like, I didn't even think it was that spectacular. I just see, lights coming from the ocean up and into the sky. And that's that. And we saw them monthly, if not a couple bi-monthly.
Yeah.
And, that's what I really felt for him, is because he's being told he's crazy, this, that, and don't talk about it. You'll lose your rank, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But Project Blue Book comes out, gets declassified, and all those other documents 50 years down the road, and they corroborate a lot of what this man
Yeah.
said. but they want to
Mhm.
convince him that he's crazy.
And
It's a
think
shame.
about how many other stories are like that, man. There's probably
And
hundreds of thousands of stories
and
that
the
people that have the same story.
yep. Oh,
And
I agree.
we've talked about, I forget the exact details of it, but the people that made I think it was Nevada, where the guy saw he was a big. They basically broke into his house and put like
Oh, they made him look
fakes. Yeah,
crazy.
they gave him a little bit of information because they knew what he saw, but
They even planted a what they planted in his yard. They planted something like in a field. Was it a
I don't
crashed
know, but it was
UFO?
just a crazy story. They broke into his house, and one of the guys
Mhm.
that were a part of the group or that was part of the cover up, like befriended him, became like his best friend. I wish I could remember the details. Became like his best friend just to get the inside of him. You know what I mean? So we can like,
Mm.
and they all encouraged him, like, yeah, you know, but they were trying to make him look crazier and crazier so that they could discredit him. Like that's the point of it,
Yeah,
and
that's
that's what they did
sinister.
back then. You know. Like this
Yeah,
guy, these
that's
people befriended him
yeah.
Oh
just
yeah,
to, you know, and I think
they've
he
written
actually went to a
an
mental
insane.
hospital for a while, for like 6 months or something because of it.
It's a hell of
There's
a
a
long con.
yeah, there was a book about it. We did a podcast on it last year.
Yeah, I had to look at the
Can't think of the
details,
guy's
but
name, but it was such a crazy story, but it's something that's so believable when you read it that the government would have done it.
and the
They
fact
would
that
have
they
said,
don't
Absolutely.
declassify anything now for 50 years, it's like the COVID shots and all that information.
Yeah.
They don't declassify it. I think it's 77 years. I think they said, or 70 years they're going
Yeah.
to release all the information. I'm like, how's that going to help us?
yeah, it's
I'm
You
I'm
know, like
just yeah.
I don't.
I'm waiting on Kennedy.
Yeah,
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 for
yep.
real. You know,
But no, they
we
broke
talk.
into David Grush's place too. They
Yeah,
did that.
I mean, we talk about a
They
lot of
showed.
conspiracy theory stuff too, but the older I get and the more shit I read, and I'm like, maybe it's not a conspiracy. Like, I think they killed Kennedy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah. I think
not,
everyone believes that at this point.
and the insanity of our government just today. You know that where they're always under the eye, they're always in front of the media. Everybody has social media. Everybody sees everything. Imagine what they did back then when nobody saw shit. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
could get away
Yeah.
with whatever you wanted to get away with, and all that people could do is believe you or whatever. You know?
believe in their country.
Yeah, I mean that's
About it.
it. It's wild to
There's a
think
school of
about.
thought that Maryland was that
Yep.
was another death by the CIA because uh Johnny and Robbie
Well,
they would
JFK
take her
one.
to Wright Patterson or
Yeah.
Nellis and
Yep.
show these craft.
I've read that.
And
And it's crazy. And
yeah,
JFK wanted to come out with some stuff, and she basically kind of blackmailed him and said, "Hey, I'm going to come out with this shit." Like, you know, and that's
yep.
how when they like it wasn't very much longer until after that she was dead. You know,
Oh yeah.
and
Well, here, with the smoke, there's fire, like we were talking about. Why are there CIA declassified documents of Marilyn Monroe?
right.
Yeah.
What other celebrity,
Yeah.
what other person do you know that would be in there? I can't think of any. I've looked for modern ones. I've looked for other ones back in her time. She
Yeah.
has a few documents that you would have to FOIA to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a crazy
Unbelievable.
story when you read about like what she knew and what they think she knew and what she was going to do. You know, that's a big story. Like they took her out. They wanted to shut her
It's
up.
100% believable. You know why?
100%. 100%.
Because
Yeah.
JFK and Robbie are arguably, for their time, they were two attractive guys in the 60s from
Mhm.
New England.
Yeah.
They look like everybody else, if not worse, to a Hollywood, LA woman.
Yes.
So how are you going to get attention from Marilyn Monroe if you can't get that attention physically?
I'm going to
You
take her
got
to
to tell
aliens
her
if I
some
got
stuff.
to. Hell
Yeah, you got to tell her some
I'm
stuff. You got
down.
to show her information that you know that she doesn't know.
Yeah.
And she's like, ooh. And then just like that little drug that kicks in, that oxytocin, that love, I'm falling for you. You got to go higher and higher and higher. And next thing you know, she's seeing declassified documents. She's seeing potentially aircraft from not in this world.
Yeah.
And, she's just picking and choosing between you and your brother, first of all.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which one
Yeah.
she's going to go with that day. And of course it's believable because they don't want the women they can get over in New England being attractive. They want this
Right.
prize.
Yeah.
That's what they want.
For sure.
Mhm.
Man.
What's
There
next?
was a story of, I forget what singer, I think it was a singer or actor that they talked about Nixon taken on a trip to to show him a UFO.
Oh, that was Jackie Gleason.
Jackie Gleason, that's what it is. And
Yep.
he was so convinced by what he saw, he went and built a whole house that was like in the shape of a UFO,
Yep.
and like the rest of his life was spent like devoted to UFOs and learning everything that he could find about them. I mean, it's just a crazy story. But they talked about they just flew him out there and
Yeah.
showed him all kinds of shit. And
now you got Nixon and you got Jackie Gleason. I'm torn between that's a match made in heaven or polar opposite.
Yeah.
I have no idea how that would go.
I don't know. I'd get on that plane though. I kind of want to go where they went.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it changed.
I feel like he would just pass the liquor off to Jackie and just let him make an ass of himself.
Whatever he saw, man, changed his life. Whatever you believe, whatever you believe about it, whatever it was, changed his life to where, like the rest of his life, he was devoted to that stuff, and he was serious about it.
Well, some people need to see to believe,
Yeah,
and a lot of people just haven't, and that's fine. You know what I mean? That's totally fine. I wouldn't want someone to believe something if they don't personally, have any information to take on.
Yeah.
What was your take on the Las Vegas UFO? There was a lot of clear video that was it was kind of compelling. I mean, it was pretty clear enough to where you could kind of make stuff out.
You could. Again, we're awful at night. You know what I mean? It's also that. But
sure,
when you listen to the dispatch and you listen to the 911 call, when the 911 call to from the family, I don't hear people making a joke,
right,
fibbing.
Sure.
And then when you have the video, the dash cam video of that green, dot in the sky and then the trail.
Yeah.
And then you have the body cam of the police officer and you can see what this family is and they visibly look shaken up like they saw something.
Yeah.
Could they have mistaken? Absolutely.
Sure,
I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not saying anything like that. But when then you have the backyard video of them walking in and you can see movement, you know what I mean? And the fence, you know what I mean? You can see all of that.
The height, didn't they say it was like 10 feet?
Like 9 feet, I think
8 to 10 feet.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then poor family, I mean, they're just it looks
I think
like
they ran them out of town.
Labor, you know what I mean? They had tractors. There's just so much there that you're looking and it's not perfect.
Yeah.
But then again, like how we talked about before, is anything going to be perfect? We mentioned a UFO could land on the White House lawn and people are going to say it's staged.
Sure. 100%.
Yeah.
Even the one that was over the strip club, that video was pretty wild. Some people say that it might have been drones, like people were flying drones or whatever, but some of the video was pretty clear actually as to like the red light and like some of the stuff that was on the bottom or whatever. I didn't get too deep into that one. For all of these
people saying drones, have you seen anyone outside flying drones as popular as they want to make these drones out to be?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I have yet to see more than one person flying these drones around and first of all, when I see them, you know what I mean? They're not high enough where you wouldn't know it's a drone.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You would need.
This thing was pretty low from the video that I remember seeing. Like it was low enough to where you could make some stuff out. It was cloud cover though, so it was tough to see. But and plus, everybody's drunk because they're at a strip club.
Yeah, at a strip club. Yeah, no.
Yeah, but
the Vegas one sticks out, and that one's going to be one of the ones remembered.
Yeah.
In lore, you know what I mean, in this subject, and if nothing else, because it came out the same summer as the disclosure hearings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, and then you had the hearings, and then you had Miami, like that summer to fall time frame.
Even some of the body cam, like just of audio of the cops, like they sounded they saw something. I don't know if they saw the creature or not, but they saw the light in the sky, and they were talking about that stuff. Like they saw something. I don't know if it, who knows what it was.
People that are
they were convinced,
paid, and they're trained to spot things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're right. The way they talk with each other, having a body cam on, you're going to become numb to it. That's what I believe.
Sure.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No,
You have a body
100%.
cam on, you're going to become numb to it.
Yeah.
You're eventually going to let your personality show through.
Yeah.
So if one of them didn't see that, that's a whole lot for them to lie, knowing their
Yeah.
body cam's on.
No, you're right. 100%.
I would rather expect people to be like, I didn't see shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I would have
Yep.
expected. You didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Which lends
Yeah.
me to believe they actually saw something. And hello, they're police officers. Are they going to lie about something in the police report?
I was
Yeah,
reading
I
some
don't know.
stuff like a couple of weeks ago. They were talking about, I forget who it was. They were talking about the CIA actually doing abductions, like the Betty and Barney Hill.
I've
They
heard about that one.
they
Famous
think they were
story.
actually, yeah, it's a very famous story, and
Yeah.
they believe that they were actually taken, but it was the CIA that took them, and it was basically like a setup. Like, we want you to believe, and then we want you to go out and we want you to spread this information. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's a wild.
Yeah, because
that's a
then they
wild
don't have to
accusation.
do it.
Sure. Yeah.
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 They love spreading misinformation, and if they don't have to do it, they won't, and they'll
Right.
have somebody else go out there do it, and they'll play their part. Oh no, because they know if they cover it up or they pretend to cover it up, it's going to go a lot further
Yeah.
than if they
Yeah.
come out and say, "Yeah, that's true." Actually, they know how to play the game. But many people have, had that theory that this special division,
Yeah.
CIA, and that ilk do abduct humans for scientific experimentation, because you
Yeah.
can't, obviously you can't do that now.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I
Legally.
mean?
Yeah.
Legally, but if you did it this way, that's all you need. You know what I mean? That's really all you need. And you're telling me now we have drugs that can wipe your memory. Now we have you had that back then. You just didn't tell anybody about
Yeah,
it.
you didn't know about it. Sure.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
No, I mean, Betty and Barney Hill, my God, they had to go through hypnosis.
Yeah.
Which, whether you want to believe in that or not, that's another thing. But they had to go through hypnosis to even recall anything
Mhm.
about this. So they were, drugged up. Over 2 hours of lost time.
Yeah.
And this poor couple just wanted to come back from Niagara Falls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
To New Hampshire. That's all they wanted to do.
It's one of my favorite stories when we talk about UFO stuff, is that story.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But the damage to the car, the elevated radiation levels on their clothes, all that lends to us, because I believe
Exactly.
if it was, it's so clean that you're not going to get that.
Yeah.
It's surgical. You know what I mean? You're not going to get the radiation spikes. You're not going to get the damage to the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. More and more people are coming out and talking about it. Like, that's how they do it. And the odd thing to me is, and if you think about it, like, logically, to cover it up for this long, I assume they have a good reason for it. It doesn't really make sense to me. Like, I think we've seen enough now. I think that if they started coming out more and more, like, people would be like, okay, we get it. Like, we kind of see, what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we talked about earlier, the religion thing. There's religious people that would freak out about it, maybe.
They're just not ready to hear the news that they're about to hear.
But I feel like I feel like if they just came out with it and said, yeah, we got things, we don't know what they are. We're studying them. We're this, we're that. We're doing what we got to do. I think people would kind of understand eventually,
Yeah,
so.
it's not going to be something fixed in a generation.
Sure.
It would be something that you'd have to work towards it, where maybe your grandchildren, you know what I mean, would start to be the ones to come around on that. And then, just like with a lot of other things, when you had major, socioeconomic sociology changes, you're going to have those holding back that want to live in the world I knew. You know what I mean? So eventually those would have to die out. Those kids would have to die. And I think a little bit by a little bit that weeds itself out to that point. But when, if they were to come out, this would have to be on a scale with the church. This can't just be one or the other, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You like we talked about the Vatican earlier. They are so intertwined in this with the United States government as well, that we are one of our major political parties has their base in that Christian religion, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have both. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
At that point, you're going to get a lot of people. If you do both, you're going to get a lot of people you're going to get a lot of people just off the bat, but it's those ones that it'll be the vocal minority that's going to be the problem as you go on forward.
Right.
That, well, they can't protect us anyway, or I'm going to shoot them, or you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's part of it. Like you want, as a American citizen, you want to feel safe. You know what I mean? You want to feel like your government's got it under control. They don't, but you know, in any sense of the word, they can't get anything right for the most part. But you know, you generally feel safe here. You know what I mean? Like,
well, they did tell us that we're defenseless against it. So I mean, they have that to go back on too. So,
right.
Like a lot of people are going to feel.
Yeah, but that was almost an outsider thing. You know what I mean? Like they were sitting on the one side. They weren't on the panel side of Congress. They were on the other one. So I think in that realm, that's the only reason they let that go.
Yeah. Well, man, I could talk about this stuff all day. I love UFO stuff. I love paranormal stuff.
Got to go to Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh, dude, I want to make that trip. I want to make that trip. I want to camp out for a weekend, man, and just sky watch and
we have to do
ho-hos and ding dongs and watch aliens all night. Like that would be the coolest thing ever. That would be the coolest thing ever.
Excellent. Just a wonderful time. Even if you didn't catch nothing, it'd still be great.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, sure. I'd have to bring a drone out there, and I mean just some cameras and have some fun.
Yeah, I imagine there's probably a lot of people out there with drones, and I wonder how much like there's government interference out there, how much they watch. I'm sure they're all over it. I'm sure they watch everybody out there. Some, you know, you can't get anywhere near within a mile of Area 51 without, you know, being stopped and cameras and all kinds of stuff. I always love the videos of the guys trying to get close to it. You know,
they always stop
and here comes a Humvee up behind them. They didn't even know was there.
And they watch them for 20 minutes while they're on their way. Like they saw you coming from Dallas. Like we saw you coming, bro.
You when you got off the exit.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But they got it locked down, man. I tell you, I don't know what they're hiding out there, but. Well, if
you believe in the NSA monitoring text messages, they would know you were going to come before you even got in the car.
Exactly.
That's just it, man. You don't, you know, they say they can read and listen to every phone call that's made. So I'm sure they have a group listening.
Oh yeah,
good.
They're gonna find me out there one day. I don't know what to tell them, but it's gonna happen. So I'm telling you now. You don't have to tap my phone. I'll tell you now.
Yeah,
I'll
just call me when
I'm coming.
I'll tell you everything I know.
I'll tell you right now. I don't care.
That's good.
Oh man, Tom, I appreciate your time, man. It was
thank you.
It was great
been a pleasure
doing this.
to be on.
If you ever get any more inside information, reach out, brother. It was great.
Yeah, I'm always following. If I find something particularly interesting, I'll send it to you both.
Yeah, man. If you want to hang out, if you want to nerd out, bro, we're always here.
Sounds good to me.
Tom, you got anything you want to plug, man? You got any books? You got any websites? You got
Absolutely, yes. So I have two shows. One, Beyond the Radar, 6 p.m. Eastern, UPRN. We are on 107.7 FM in New Orleans, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast, or again, Facebook and YouTube at Beyond the Radar or UPRN's Facebook page. I also have Chasing Prophecy on the same network. That's Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Both shows 1 hour. Great information, great topic, and me pontificating about UFOs and how you need to care. You know, so that's basically the premise for both. But also, I just dropped Healer, my book, my fiction book. It's about a criminal who can absorb trauma and the cause and effect of that, you know, and implications during a high profile trial.
Oh, right.
Whether he should or he shouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
So very interesting, doing great on Amazon. Please help me get to bestseller. Purchase your copy, Healer, on Amazon.
Well, I'm gonna pick it up. I'm curious now.
I actually got, I got it. I was talking
to
Ian. I got it last night. I'm about 30 pages in.
Awesome. You got it?
Yeah, I bought it last night.
Awesome. Okay, great. So 30 pages. You got past the initial and right at the little reunion, right?
I believe so. Oh man, don't worry. I'll definitely leave a review after. I know reviews are everything.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yes, that's wonderful. A review. I really appreciate that. And yeah, anybody who wants to pick it up, leave a review. I promise it's great. And I promise, you know, I will personally, you'll get my heartfelt thank you from that because Amazon reviews are God.
yeah.
especially for books.
Oh, they are.
Right on, man. Oh yeah, we did a book too. We know.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
there you go. Well, excellent.
All
Well,
right.
thank you both. Wonderful, wonderful, and I'll be sure to reach out if any of you want to be on one of my shows. All right.
Oh, absolutely, man.
Awesome. Sounds
Absolutely.
good.
Stay in touch. I appreciate everything, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You got it.
Yep. Have a